You're listening to Lemon's Listening Library. Discover the story behind the stories with unique and raw conversations from the people who make your favorite books a reality.
I was like, and went to the castle, and they're like, what? And I'm like, I don't know. I can't.
And then there's always like one normal name, so it's like blah 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 and Brian.
Gotta love Brian.
Thank God they have a Brian.
I do like how a lot of fantasy books now are kind of like they have at the beginning like the breakdown of how you say the character's name.
Yeah, I
But
was really enjoying that. I'm a little bit late to the game, but I'm reading the ACOTAR series, and she puts how to pronounce every single name in her books, and I find that fantastic because I will absolutely mispronounce them. Back when I was younger and reading like my first fantasy book, of course, was like, back in the days of Harry Potter, and Hermione was Hermione.
yep, Hermione.
Hermione.
And I remember when I first heard it in the movie, I was like, "That's not it. You're lying." I was like, "No."
Well, same here. I like named them something totally different, and then watched the movie and was like, oh, okay, that does make more sense.
Well, adding being an author who comes up with words on top of that, like I had a word in my first book that I wrote and I wanted it to be mejug. And then my husband, whenever he read it, he's like, when you read this, it says my shoes. And I was like,
That's kind of like in the D&D game that we played, Randy, when you were leading it, and there was a dragon, and you pronounced the name, and her husband was just like, "No, honey, no."
well, yeah, that's how it's gonna be pronounced because I cannot pronounce that XJ crap for nothing.
Oh gosh, yeah. Even basic words, like not really basic, but turquoise for the longest time I couldn't say. And my husband like tried to train me to say it properly.
Well, you hear how I do the podcast intro, right? Where it says library. Yeah, that's gonna irritate some people. It's not
I love
library,
it
it's
though.
library. That's how I say it, bro.
I don't know. I think it's cute. It's catchy.
Either it's gonna be like that's gonna be my little thing is I just mispronounce everything, or that's gonna be like calling all the haters in and we're still gonna get lots of views anyway, so it's fine.
Either way, we appreciate the listening, even if it's just to rip apart how we're mispronouncing everything that we say.
Exactly, exactly. Okay, well, we've already jumped into a lot of awesome stuff. I want to kind of backtrack just a little bit and do some housekeeping and kind of tell you guys that we are now offering Patreon slots for people who are interested in advertising their books or their services or anything that they would like to advertise within the book realm on the podcast and our social media. So if that's something you're interested in, you guys can go to our link tree and go to our Patreon. That will have the different tiers on there, and it's going to be the last tier if anyone is interested in that. And I guess we should just start off with welcome to Lemon's Listening Library. Today we have a co-host, Bree, and our lovely guest, JC. JC, do you want to kind of give a brief introduction of yourself?
Okay. I'm a romance author. I've been writing for about 10 years now. I think I'm coming up on my 10-year published first series. See, already off with the mispronouncing things. Cool, cool. I live in Ontario, Canada. I have two kids, two dogs, a bearded dragon, and a husband. And yeah,
Is he the
my
bearded
base
dragon?
what?
I
Well,
said
he
it.
can be. The bearded dragon is actually docile. He's kind of feral.
That's funny.
Yeah, pretty much just like writing romance books. There's always an element of romance in all of my stories, and I love love.
Don't we all? Yeah. I definitely enjoy it whenever it like sneaks up on you. You're like, I wasn't expecting this to be a romance, but it just happened.
It's like sugar in tea or something. Like it's just it's so sweet.
How much sugar do you like it? Oh, that's a new spicy thing. Instead of all the spices, how much sugar cubes do you want in your book?
A lot of sugar, a lot. Like yeah, I put five in my coffee, so I need at least five in my books.
That's funny. So you like it like the creamy caramel color, almost white looking coffee?
Yes, yes, I do.
Yeah, I don't like coffee. I'm so I guess I'm weird. I don't know.
I'm
My husband doesn't drink it either.
I love
So,
coffee. I just can't drink it with the caffeine. It gives me jitters, so tea is my thing. But I love coffee. It tastes so good.
oh, I love tea. See, I
I
will
love
drink
tea
tea
too.
all day.
I find tea gives me the jitters too, unless it's like decaffeinated tea or green tea.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I quit caffeine about 6 to 8 months ago. I completely weaned myself off. It was horrible,
Yeah, the
but
withdrawals are crazy.
the withdrawals
Do you
were
feel better?
insane. I do. I can sleep better. I had really bad restless legs. Because I have a lot of chronic pain. And I found that the caffeine made my restless legs like 10 times worse.
Oh,
So
as a chronic pain person as well. Oh, oh,
That was so cute.
it was it
Oh,
was
oh.
yeah, it was such a surprise because like I don't know, I've drank caffeine my whole life. I grew up on Dr. Pepper. I'm from the
Oh my
South.
God, I love Dr. Pepper. I have like an unhealthy addiction to Dr. Pepper.
Yeah, that was I saw something online and it was like, oh, it's like what is your wine and bread? And my husband was like, yours is a taco and Dr. Pepper. And I'm like, yeah.
that's fair.
Yep. I'm trying to cut back on the soda intake, so I've gone from like a lot, like three Dr. Peppers a day to like one, which is good for me, but oh, I'm so bad with it. It's terrible. I don't have many vices. I don't smoke, I don't drink, I don't do anything. So I'm like, caffeine, Dr. Pepper.
It's crazy how caffeine is like they say that it's like the most underrated drug ever because it's literally just like enhances, your focus and all this different thing and it affects you like a drug and then when you try to stop it, you literally have withdrawals, headaches and mood swings and it's insane. But like so that's something that you have to deal with a lot with you've got, your chronic pain and then tell us about all that. You've had it for your whole life, right?
Yes. I was 18 months old when I was diagnosed with multiple hereditary exostosis. It kind of happened because around 13 months, I started walking, fell, wouldn't get up again. And my mom was like, that's weird. She had two other kids. So she's like, something's not right. And then they found a bump on me and they're like, oh, okay, something's really not right. So I got diagnosed with it. And basically, for the longest time, I thought I was the only one in the world with it. Because this is like before the age of like computers and like easy connecting with everybody everywhere, right? So I didn't know anybody in my family who had it, didn't know anyone at all. And they even called it like bumpy bones up until I think grade 9 when they finally said it was this condition. So yeah, a lot of chronic pain. Basically, I have extra bones, like bone tumors. They're benign. And they grow on the plates of other bones and they cause pain because they interfere with tendons and ligaments and blood vessels and all that fun stuff. So I've had upwards of about 30 surgeries, but I've stopped counting like almost 8 years ago. Like I just stopped counting because I don't like math.
That's a lot, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of surgeries. That's basically all they can do is remove anything that's impeding other things and kind of tell you to manage the pain.
That's rough. So that affected like your entire childhood, like your childhood looked very different than other kids.
Having surgeries and recovering from surgeries. My parents were really good about getting me into reading right away and writing because they thought I would need a creative distraction that wasn't unhealthy, that could keep me, you know, happy. And I found that it was really helpful because when you're stuck lying around post surgery, there's not much you can do other than, well, back then, read a book. I guess now they have video games and all that fancy stuff, but
Yeah,
I
I would have
kind
given you a Nintendo Switch. Here you go.
of
Oh
lived in
wait,
the
no,
middle
not a
of
Nintendo
nowhere.
Switch back then.
Yeah,
That was Game Boy, huh?
Game
Game
Boy.
Boy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah, but mostly just wrote and read books to kind of stay distracted. And it was a good way too, the writing, especially of funneling like any emotional turmoil or frustration into work kind of thing, like just turning big feelings and kind of explaining my way through them, I guess, in a way. So, yeah.
Did you, so like when you were a kid, did things feel like was it very noticeable that things were different between you and other kids?
Yeah. Because of, their bones growing off of other bones, there's limb differences going on. Like you can see them if I wore shorts or t-shirts. So I will admit that as a child, like I tried to hide behind layers upon layers of clothes and just not show off my differences. I had three sisters and they were all born without this condition. So like I always felt like if I stood beside them, you'd really notice
Are
too.
you the youngest, or where do you fall in the sibling
I'm the
lineup?
third born, so stuck in the middle with the middle.
Did so like did that affect your friendships and stuff too? You just kind of were a loner, or did you have like did you end up developing a good group of friends?
I actually have always had luck with friends. Like I've always had a lot of great friends at my corner. I still talk to all of my friends that I had growing up, really. One of them didn't really like social functions. So like when we were teenagers, instead of going to all the parties, she'd come over and have a sleepover at my house and watch lame movies and drink pop and eat chips. Like she was totally cool about just not doing what everybody else was doing. So I was lucky in that way that I've made a lot of friendships with people that get it. Um, so, but even still, like you still kind of feel lonely because they don't really like they sympathize, but they don't really know exactly what you're going through. They try to, but you kind of can't unless you're wearing those shoes.
Yeah,
Or,
my best friend has spina bifida. So he's had multiple surgeries. He's had just multiple chronic issues. He was bedridden for 2 whole months, and I've had to stand by him through all this, and it's really hard because I don't know what he's going through. I have my own chronic pain, but like I've never had to deal with the surgeries and the stairs and all of that because mine's invisible. I have an invisible illness, and and I understand that I have a little bit of what's the word? I have a little bit of like words.
privilege, maybe? Is that
Privilege. That's
yeah.
that's the word. That's the word. I have a lot of privilege because my illness is invisible. Like no one's gonna say anything to me. But I've seen the stares. I've seen the rejection. He went through a lot of heartbreak and stuff in
Yeah.
high school, and after that, like he pined after so many girls, and they would just see his disability and they wouldn't see him, and it was really heartbreaking. From a best friend standpoint, to sit by and watch your friend go through that.
Yeah, it is. I can relate to that definitely. My very first boyfriend that I got serious with and, was intimate with dumped me by saying that bone thing's really gross. So it was like, leading up to it, I was always afraid that would be a thing, and then it was a thing, and that was like so difficult. And I remember my best friend wanting to just punch him in the face. She's just like, no, no, you don't get to say that. But I'm like, well, so I get that, and I definitely felt like from then forth that like my worry was like reality because it had been reinforced by somebody else outside of my own head. So that sucks, and
Yeah.
I sympathize with your friend. It took meeting my husband for he like it was so weird. He didn't see it. Like,
Yeah.
you know how you can tell when somebody
Hmm.
can see it and somebody
Yeah.
knows, and then you can tell when they like genuinely didn't see it. They didn't
Yeah.
notice it until you like pointed it out, and even then they were like, ah, whatever.
Yeah. He's been married for the past 7 years. I want to say he met his wife about 9 years ago, and she's never seen his disability, not one time. Like she even forgets. Like we'll be doing things, and I'm like, he can't do that. And she's just like, oh, right. Because I mean, like it just slips your mind because to us, he's a normal person.
Yeah,
My
for
uncle,
sure.
and this is different, a little bit different, but he's blind, and we joke all the time that he's not blind because we treat him, so just like everybody else. And he will do things, and he will say, like, we were driving one time, and he's like, "Oh, you're down there by, this and this store," and I was like, "You can't see nothing. How do you know where we are?" And he's like, "I do the same routine all the time. I know when you turned, I felt the car," and I was like, "That is insane. You are a Superman."
Your other senses definitely come to the front when you can't use one of them, I think.
You're good.
Uh, yeah, I was sick yesterday, so I spent a lot of the day being sick, you know what I mean? And my throat's raw, but that's
You're
okay.
good. We appreciate you being on, even though you're recovering.
I would not miss it. Like, I would have had a bucket beside me otherwise.
I'm super excited. Like, this is going to be something, like talking about your personal background and stuff like that. I feel like this is going to be something completely different than what other people are doing.
Yeah, there's so many things that inspire writing and like cool. I love talking about my books. Don't get me wrong. Like I'll talk about my books until I'm blue in the face and people are like, please just stop. But it's so cool to see where these stories, like where these ideas come from too.
Yeah. And that's what I was going to ask was like, do you have any characters in your books or even stuff that you've written but never published or, things like that where it was like, this person got me through this or this character got me through this. This
Oh yeah,
story got me through this.
so many, like all of them, literally all of them. Like my debut book, Collide, is a three-part series, like a trilogy. Um, it's more like new adult. It, I would say there's romantic elements in it, but it's more like romantic suspense. It was just a story that I needed to tell because somebody very close to me experienced a lot of the things that Harlow went through. Not the hooking up with the teacher bit. That was kind of
You got to add the
that was
flair.
yeah, that was just we had, everybody has that teacher at school that's like attractive and everybody's like flirting with them. And I remember being like, huh, I wonder, nothing ever happened, but like the imagination can run wild if it wants to.
Maybe like,
Yeah,
it's never gonna happen, but
but
I
it's
remember
put
his
it
fiction.
out
name.
there.
Like I know he was the science teacher. I remember his name. Like, yep.
Yeah, ours was a youngin who came in to take over for the careers and anthology and psychology course. And I remember him showing us a video of like that Family Guy episode where Meg gets recruited by a cult. And he's like, "Oh, so did you notice what the girl did? She said she wanted to brush her hair and was very complimentary. And some girl in the back, like, I'll brush your hair." And I just remember how beat red he went. He had to like leave the classroom for a minute to like collect himself. And it
He's
just
like, think about my
kind of,
job, think about my job.
right? It put a worm in my ear where I was just like, I gotta write a book about this one day. Like not like about that, but like just like a dynamic where the teacher's young enough that a high school student that's mature just very well might stand a chance.
That's awesome. That's fun.
But yeah. And then I started writing other books and I liked getting more into the romantic side of things. I don't know, it's fun. But I also like to write a lot of angsty stuff and like family trauma. So yeah.
I like it. And so whenever you like were writing this stuff, did it help you, like you said, it helped you work through your emotions and stuff like that. Did you make your characters experience things or like how did that work for you on getting through your emotions?
A bit of both. Like I would have them go through something similar, um, and process it maybe like how I would like to or what made sense. Um, or like something somebody else had gone through. If I like wanted to write like with Harlow, she's kind I don't know how much of it. I don't want to like, but basically the pretense is she's like the 17-year-old girl who moves up to North Bay with her mom when she remarries and starts going to a Catholic school, and she's kind of escaping down south rumors because she was taken advantage of at a party, and the rumors spread that she wanted it and that she was so she's kind of like, well, if this is what people think of me, then this is how I'm going to act, sort of mentality. Very tough, very like trying to be independent, but definitely needing something, right? And then she actually walks in on a classmate getting taken advantage of at a party and stands up for her. And then a whole bunch of crazy stuff happens with the police department because the guy that was doing it is the son of the police chief, sort of thing. And a lot of other stuff going on there that I kind of wanted her and the other girl, Jenna, to like take them to court, get some like, get some justice for what happened to them.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's so, I love whenever people, like when you're reading something and you can tell there's emotions in the plot line or in what's happening. And it either, like you said, an injustice that you wish had happened differently or something that did happen to you and similar to how things played out with you. You can feel that stuff in the writing.
Well, can you? Oh,
I can.
oh.
I will get like I will get goosebumps. I'm not a huge crier. Every now and then a book will make me cry, but I love it when I get the goosebumps. I'm like, "Oh yeah,
This
that's some
meant something
emotional
to
shit right
them.
there." Yeah, we can feel your trauma through the book.
Oh gosh, I'm sorry. Sorry.
Not in a bad way. You want to read books that make you feel emotions and experience things that, you either may have experienced and you can relate to, or haven't experienced and you're living a different world.
Yeah, that's true. You definitely, that's what I love about books and writing and just like all of it in general is you can really put on a lot of different, you can try on a lot of shoes, right? Like you can see what it's like from this person's point of view and perspective and what they've gone through and why they make the decisions that they make based on what they've gone through and what their upbringing is and what they have to deal with, like what tools they have. And yeah, I definitely, there's so many books that I've been working through stuff. Like the Forgotten Flounder series is really, really close to me because it's a lot of family-based traumas, but also like losing the grandparent. Like there were a couple of times the past couple of years that we thought we were going to lose my grandparents, and it was kind of like my way of coping with it. Knock on wood, they're still kicking it today, and yeah, but I definitely would be writing about Callum and Connor losing their grandpa and like sobbing just because of how much my grandpa means to me and how much he inspired their grandpa when I was writing. Um, so
That is
It's almost
something. Oh, go ahead, Brie.
it's almost like your own like sort of therapy.
it is.
Um, they encourage journaling. I'm not an author, but I probably could be. I have a lot of stories in my head. It's just putting them into paper. But um, they encourage journaling, and journaling is just writing through your feelings, which is exactly what you're doing in a book, is writing writing through your feelings. It's putting your feelings into words
Yeah,
and maybe putting your feelings into a character. And it's an outlet, like it's a creative outlet for feelings. And maybe for a lot of people, maybe therapy isn't an option. Maybe they're not ready to talk about what they're going through, but maybe writing, maybe they can write it out. And a lot of people are like, "Oh, I could never journal." Well, you could never journal, but could you write a short story? And
that's it. Yeah.
yeah, that's really inspiring, actually.
I do it both. Like I've been bad about journaling lately, but I try to journal as often as I can. But I definitely love that with writing, you can process those emotions, but you can also make the characters and what happens play out in a way that you would have liked to see or that gives you some sense of that justice, right? Like um I know I like my Rebel series is based in Parry Sound, Ontario, and it's about this family that's kind of, you know, the talk of the town, like they're from the wrong side of the tracks, so to speak. And everything bad that happens to them, like an alcoholic father that was abusive. The younger sister ends up getting involved with a guy that also abuses her, and the oldest brother ends up going to jail for defending her. So like they're from the wrong side of the tracks, but and they dealt with trauma. But the way that I processed it throughout the story, I feel like I don't know how to say it. The words are failing me, but like I was able to give them a happily ever after where they're accepted by the town and the community. And like that doesn't really in real life often happen because a lot of people don't take the time to listen to their neighbor stories anymore, which is really sad. But yeah, I just try to like build up the communities in my stories and
I like that. I really like, as a reader, I like being able to relate to my stories. I grew up on the wrong side of tracks, and so being able to read a book about my neighbors getting justice or my friends getting justice, like I would definitely be able to relate into that. And as a reader, I really enjoy when our authors put experiences like that into books. Because like Randy said, I can feel it through the pages. And I want to feel. When I don't feel, that's when I like do not finish, if I'm being
Yeah.
right,
honest.
you want to feel that. You need
Yeah,
to feel it. Like absolutely. And I try to give them different experiences too. Like Tessa kind of gets taken advantage of at a party, but instead of going to the cops, she just has her brothers handle it. Which, a
it,
lot of people
it
were like,
happens.
why didn't she go to the cops? Well, look at the statistics of people who do go. Like,
Right.
She was
A
asking
lot of,
for it. She was,
yeah,
yep.
there's a
exactly.
stereotype, associated with it. And not just that, a lot of people, especially that grew up on the wrong side of tracks, have a lot of negative experiences with police officers.
Yep.
Um, So, like, how can you go and report something embarrassing and traumatic that happened to you when you can't even trust the people that you're reporting it to? So,
Yeah, and too, like with the other in that series, Becky, you know, the one that went through the domestic violence incident, like she did end up taking him to court and getting a restraining order, and he went to jail for stuff, but her brother also went to jail for handling it. So like it's like a mixed bag, right? Like,
right.
and throughout her story, she's in therapy talking about it. She's talking about like what she went through, how hard it was for her family to suffer the consequences of it, and how difficult it is for her to trust again anybody, right? So I try to make my characters experience it in a variety of colors, like just different ways that people can relate to or not relate to, but kind of go, oh, okay, I see why they did that. You know, like,
Or even what I like is when you don't really understand why they did that because that's not how you operate, but you can like especially the way that like me and my husband operate, we are so completely opposite. When I read characters that are like him, I'm like, "Oh, that's him." Like I will put, that becomes him if they act primarily like he does. And that just gives a whole new, like Bree said, like a new way to connect to the story whenever it's relating to real life things that you have going on in your life. And I don't understand, why does he have his, systems that he does? That doesn't make sense to me. But I love reading about people who have different operations and how they behave and operate.
yeah, I love it too. I'm a big
Um,
fan of people watching, so I just like it's fun for me. Like just try and figure out what people would do based on their personalities or their habits or their like it's fun.
Yeah, especially whenever you are being led by the character. That's something that I don't think people realize as authors. Like we think we have a plot line and then the characters have their own agenda and it's like, okay, because you have this idea of the story, but then you have these personality types in the story that affect things in different ways that you want this outcome to happen, but this person is, a very hot-headed person and they're not just going to go willingly and it ends up in a whole different area that you did not expect.
Exactly. They're going to fight you and they're going to lead you down a totally different path. And you're going to be like, oh, how did we get here?
And then
That
you're just gonna
happens.
be like Randy and roll a d20.
Yeah.
That's smart.
Do you play Dungeons and Dragons or anything? Or know
My
about
son
Dungeons?
does. My
We
son and
play
my husband
Dungeons.
do. They try to get me into it, but I'm always like, well, what if we like, oh my God, they made me make a character. I'm like, what if my character is in love with your character? And Matt's like, no, mine's an ogre. And like they're
So,
or
so
a barbarian ogre or whatever, and they have a hatred of elven witch. I don't know, whatever the thing was. He's like, this would never work. And I'm like, that's what makes it work.
yeah,
He's like,
exactly.
this is
Yes.
not a romance
You
book. This
just
is
don't
Dungeons and
know that
Dragons.
you like me yet, okay?
Just wait. Just
What if
wait.
I
Let me
save you
romance
during a
you.
bar fight?
Yeah. You're like, just wait. Let me romance you. Let this story play out. And if it happens, it happens.
Yeah,
We
Hang
don't
on,
have
let
to
us
force
just trauma
anything.
bond really quick.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God, that's funny.
so they
No,
have tried to trade me a few times, but
I will say as an author, like I love playing Dungeons and Dragons because it's almost like being able to write short stories because you're playing characters, but you actually like the other characters in the story are other humans and so like they affect different things and it's a lot of fun. I wanted to go back really quick to you said making characters go through things and then the outcome is different than what it was in real life. I just wanted to touch really quickly on like that is an actual form of therapy. When people go through therapy and they have like a traumatic thing happen in their past, they will do like EMDR type stuff where they go back into that scenario and they're them now as an adult will protect the inner child in the situation or they will step in and have the outcome differently because, what is it like? I think 70% of our past is what we perceive and not actually what happened. It's just how we perceived it to be. And that's like a form of therapy of people going back. And I think that's crazy because, like Bree said, writing is so therapeutic and people do not realize it.
yeah, no. Oh, yeah, that's the nail on the head right there.
Yes, yep. I wanted to touch on that because everyone out there who's like, I couldn't be a writer like you, Bree, uh, you guys have no idea the beautiful stories that are in your heads and just taking the time to figure out how to get it to paper because that's the hardest part, right? Is just
Yeah.
from your mind to the paper or to the tablet or to the laptop, that's the hardest part. But when you start practicing, it gets easier and easier.
So one
That's
of the
true.
things that I've started doing like not just writing, but in general is I create D&D characters. I have a whole folder for D&D characters. I'll just start coming up with them. Like I have a character in mind that just collects rocks. It's gonna be really fun to play out, but she's gonna collect rocks and she's gonna have a lot of rocks.
That's funny.
Um,
I have a lot of rocks.
see, I have a lot of rocks. Uh, but I think that's kind of my own therapy is just creating characters. A lot of people get into Sims and I can't I personally just
I
cannot get into Sims.
I used to love The Sims. I don't think like I haven't played it in forever, but like I used to love The Sims. That was like my jam. And before like I really started writing, I would make sim families of the
Yeah.
like, of yeah, future books,
Yeah,
I guess they would
that's
have been.
my best friend. She only plays Sims 2. That's all she'll play. She's like the new ones are way too in depth. She just wants to play out stories of families, and she gets so in depth. And she could totally write a story. And she went to college for English. She's in the military now. She's a linguist. She speaks Arabic. She's going to school for Russian. Like this girl could probably write if she would ever put the pen to paper, but she won't because she's like, oh no, I could never write. And I'm like, yes, you can. I was like, you
So many
totally could
people
write.
think that they can't, but they can. And like the thing with writing too that you need to know is even if you like just get the story out and it's you think crap, you can still improve it from there. You can still like fine tune it, and then the editors really help you bring it to a story. So I don't know. I always try to get people to write because I'm like, no, like you have interesting things to say. Like you should be writing.
Yeah,
That
Like
I
is
don't
so
think that.
true.
Oh, go ahead, Randy.
The first draft that I ever wrote, I don't want anyone to ever see it. Ever, ever, ever. But when I read back at it, like I was in such an unhealthy place when I was writing it. That person, that girl that I wrote, that was me in that time. Like, and it's so cringy to go back and read, but that was reality of like my life then was that toxic situation, that toxic relationship. And I don't want anyone to ever read it, but that was my reality. That I wrote that character because that helped me get through my situation, much like you. And so it's just, I agree with you. Just write it, just get it out. Burn it if you want to. Don't
yep,
ever show
nobody
anybody.
needs to read it. Just write it.
Yeah.
You know? Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
that
you
first
don't want to
draft's
be
gonna
like
be rough.
98 and looking back and going, I wrote so many stories that I wish I could have turned, like I had so many stories to tell. I wish I could have wrote. Like, just do it. Just do it.
And I don't think people like the general public, and I think that's something this podcast is really going to help know how the writing process, like how to write, like the writing a book, like how the process works. They don't understand how editors work. They don't understand how anything works. They're like, oh, I have to do it all. And it's like, no, you have to write a story. And then you have a group of people that are going to help you
Yep.
turn it into a book. And I think this podcast is going to be really great for that because Randy has so many different types of people like lined up. So it's just, I don't know. I think it's going to be a good place to get this information out there and maybe
Agree.
help people write. Maybe me. Who knows?
I agree. Do it, Bree.
Like season end finale is like, oh, we get Bree back on as a guest, and it's your debut book.
That would be amazing. Yeah, now you have to, Bree. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'll write a novella.
Novellas count. Oh, I love
Oh my
novellas. They're
gosh, I
quick,
love
they're easy.
novellas. They're so quick and they're so sweet. It's like let's go back to the sugar count.
Yep. Yep.
I
Yep.
I wish I could write a novella. As soon as I start something small, it's like, oh, and then they could do this. Oh, and then they could do this, and this plot twist can happen. I'm like, ah, shit, I'm in book 3 already.
And see, I
Yep.
think that's
Yeah.
why I see novellas more in like giant series, but they're like 5 books in and then you get a novella. Because like you need that little
That
outlet
at
for
that
these
point,
characters.
yeah, at that point, the novella is just like the extra stuff that you wanted to include, but that didn't really fit the timeline of the book, but you can
Right.
still include it. And yeah, that's like Rebel Christmas. It's like
That's like
not
when
focus.
when
Yeah.
movies have like the director's cut or like
Yes.
the
It's the Christmas
Director's cut.
special.
Yep.
Yes. Oh, I love them. I actually just wrote a short story for an anthology to I'm doing a signing event in August, Ignite Your Soul author event, and we always pick like something to donate the funds to. So this year it's Sick Kids Foundation, which is, you know, a foundation part of the Sick Kids Hospital that raises money for sick kids. And it was like, you can only write 10,000 words. And I'm like, okay, no problem. I went over by like 227 words. And that was with me cutting like 5,000 words.
It's so hard. I have so much to say.
I know. I was like, how, like, there's just, oh. And then I have readers going, like, oh, can you make that bigger? I'm like, I'm going to have to. Because, like, in my head, I need to make this bigger. But I only had 10,000 words and I already went over. So, like,
Well, kind of going back to what like Bree said, like your writing process is going to be very different than my writing process, and everyone's writing process is so different. So like that's one thing that I would like to also let people know is like if you're interested in writing, you can take ideas from other people and make them your own. Like, okay, I like how she does that. I'm going to leave that. I don't really care for how they do that. And then oh, this person does this. I really like that idea, so I'm going to implement that. Like it looks so different from person to person.
I think that writing's a lot like cooking, you know? Like you taste a meal and you really like it, but there's going to be changes that you're going to make to that meal to make it either more accommodating to you and your family's needs or, you know, just spice it up a little bit because you like it a little bit more spicy. Like it's just, yeah, you just kind of cook something more you.
It's so funny you say that because I was just telling a friend the other day, I was like, oh, it would be so nice to like write a cookbook or something, but I don't use measurements whenever I cook because I'm like, oh, measurements are for baking. But like just like writing, measurements aren't for writing either because you're gonna add and you're gonna take away and you're gonna make it your own.
Yeah.
Uh, you're just gonna make your own meal.
Like there are so many like tropes and genres, right? That
Yes.
and you can make it totally different from all the other things out there just by what you're saying and what you're feeling and what you want your characters to go through and what they feel. And I don't know, I just there's room for everybody.
And I also love that, like, okay, so me and you, JC, we could get the exact same bare bone plot line and we write it, and it's gonna be two completely different books when it's done. Like that is one thing that I absolutely love is like everyone's like, oh, but there's no new content, there's no new stories. He falls in love with her and they live happily ever after. No, the way that I'm gonna tell it and the way that you're gonna tell it and the way that you're gonna tell it is all completely
They
different.
have to get to that happily ever after. And
Yep.
who knows how they're going to get there,
They
except
might be
for,
80.
yeah, yeah, they might be. Or they might go through some crazy stuff to get there, fight some dragons, you know, or,
Or,
well, maybe not,
their happily ever after could be in the afterlife.
right?
Oh.
Yep, spiritual realm. Look at that.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. See, oh, Bree, I'm not an author.
I don't have an idea do.
I'm telling you, like I probably could. I'm horrible at actually writing. Like it's just writing and I understand that I'm my own handicap there. But like when I was younger, I used to write short stories. I used to love English. English is my favorite class. Why? Because I could write papers and I could
Yep.
write like creative writing. And then at some point it just like dropped and I haven't went back to it. But I think I started reading again last year and it's really kind of revitalized me. Uh, and I was like, well, I've already created all these characters for my D&D characters. And I'm like, I could just put them in books. I could just create D&D like worlds and then write books on these worlds. And I'm like, it could be so easy. But I like, again, it's my own mental handicap, like holding myself back.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
it's your
yeah.
beliefs on how you operate too. Like, Bree, it's funny that you said that about putting D&D characters into books is because do you remember that session that we had where we had the mimics?
Yes.
I put that into my book, the one I'm writing right now. Uh,
That's amazing.
So there was
So,
a scene where we go up against these mimics, which turned into us, and we had to fight ourselves. And my character has this romance thing going on with a robot that she has that like lived with her whole life, and I know it's crazy. That's not in the story. Just the concept of like she was fighting her own mimic shade, and then the character killed her as the mimic shade, and it affected her seeing him kill
Yeah.
her. And
Yeah,
so
because we were so trauma. Like my character ended up so traumatized from that scene specifically because I was like, I don't know if I can trust anybody because the character that I created is such like a loner that she doesn't know. Like she was so she is a from she's from the Fae realm, but it's in space. It's like a whole different realm. And she was dropped into the ocean, and she has no clue how she got there. She has no clue that she's actually an astral elf either. And that's the funniest thing. She actually fears astral elves,
Can't tell me
and she
that.
has
We're still
no
playing that game.
clue. She has
I'm just
no
kidding.
clue. Forget any of this. But yeah, she's got no clue that like she's surrounded by astral elves. It's gonna be funny.
Oh, that's so
But see, I'm creating her as we're playing, and that's very similar to how you create characters in books.
Yeah.
She's she's going through it, and
yeah.
it's evolving, and she's changing, and I actually wouldn't have thought that she would be where she is from where I started her.
Yeah,
But that's
yeah,
just
like
where the story has taken her.
yep. That's what we were talking about. Like the characters take the lead on things. And like
They
JC, do
do.
you have a character that is like your favorite character? Like is it safe to say that you have a favorite that you've written?
I I don't I've written this is going to be my 15th book. So there's a lot of characters and it's funny because I think I put pieces of myself in all of them or people that I love in all of them. So it's really difficult for me to sit there and pick a favorite um because there's so much of me spread across all of them.
That's fair.
Harlow, my first character would have been the person that I would have liked to be um when I was that age, right? Like just tough and like stands up for her friends no matter what kind of thing and goes for what she wants and even if it's wrong,
Now,
brave and loud. But like I don't and like Everly in my Damage series, I always wanted to be a singer, but I can't carry a bucket in a tune in a bucket, so I can't do that.
that's fun. That's something that's fun too, is like you live so many lives through reading and writing that you get to experience all this different stuff. Like the reason why I write is I write the stories I want to read. Like
Yes,
that
that
is one of
too.
my biggest driving factors is I want to read this, I'm gonna write it.
Yes, that was a like a driving force for me too, is I wanted to see I wanted books that I wanted to read and I wanted characters that I could relate to, but that also, were easy to root for, I guess. And I wanted Canadian scenes because like I remember growing up and reading so many books just trying to find anything that was set in Canada. It's like so few things back
Hatchet.
then were. Yeah. Yeah.
That goes right back to your analogy with cooking is like or writing is like cooking because you don't become a chef to cook for other people. You become a chef to cook the meals you want to taste.
Yep.
That is, I love that analogy is going to stick forever now.
That's going on a t-shirt.
Yeah.
Writing is like cooking.
Oh, that would be fun. I could totally design a t-shirt based off of every episode we have.
Do it. I buy it.
I'd buy it. That might be the only people who buys it is the person who is on the episode, but
I need a sticker.
Hey,
Make it in
it's a
a sticker, and
sale.
I'll buy it.
Oh yeah, stickers. Yes,
Stickers.
stickers are where it's at. Oh man, you could do like a cute little cooking pot, but with like a book coming out of it, right?
oh, hang on, I'm
All the
taking
ideas.
notes.
I'm writing that down. But yeah, it's hard. It's definitely hard to pick favorites. I guess like I'd get really close to any books that I'm currently releasing, right? Because I'm spending a lot of time with those characters. Uh, so definitely right now it would be Lux and Theo from my Riverside Reverie story that's coming out in August.
That's fair. And so in that book, you have a lot of like setting boundaries with toxic family members and stuff like that. That is that something that you're based off of how you wish things would go or how you have actually had to experience them?
A bit of both. A bit of both. I've I've got a lot of I write a lot about mental health and family dynamics because not only just in my family, but in my husband's family and so many people's families, there's always mental health struggles and, dynamics that stream from that. So for this book, I wanted to focus on the sibling relationship. And yeah, it's definitely so many people, it's funny, so many people hate Brinley, the sister, but I kind of have a soft spot for her. And I don't know if that really comes across in when I'm writing her because it's obviously told from her sister Lux's point of view, and there's a lot of hurt there. Um, but yeah.
Well, you know her backstory better than anybody, being the author. So that's something that I think is funny too, because like I think authors do have a soft spot for a lot of times like their villains or their people who are, not the
Your
front runner of the
antagonist. Yeah,
story.
for
Yeah.
sure. And I feel like I definitely one day want to go back to Brinley and give her like the redemption arcs. Like Taryn Fisher did it with Dirty Red, and like you hate the character in the first couple of books because they're perceived as being this horrible asshole person, but then you get their book and you get the whys. Like why are they this way? Why have they done the things that they've done? And how are they trying to be different, right?
Yep.
So I think I might go back to Brinley one day.
That would be fun. I
You
love
know,
that kind of stuff. Go ahead, Bree.
as a reader, it's interesting because you're like, oh, I hate this character. I hate this character. And you're like, why is this character still in this book? And, hearing that like authors can have soft spots, it's like makes you wonder, like for books that go on like series and these characters are still there, like, are they gonna have a redemption arc or are they just gonna keep them there and then kill them off at the end? Like
Go
you'll
either
never
way, really.
know.
Both could happen.
And that's
You just
what
don't know.
those are some of the conversations like you saying that if you have a reader who comes on here and you're like, oh, she has a soft spot for that character. I hate that character. Oh my God, I need you to write that book now. This is the kind of conversations I want to have where it's like, if we could have been listening to, like J.K. Rowling on Draco or something. Yeah, she has a soft spot for Draco. She has like all this, and my most exciting point for me as a writer is when I have people who do fan fictions and write that story for me.
I
Like
was just
their
gonna say
ideas.
the fan fictions on Draco,
Hmm.
like Manacled, like I'm sorry, I can never look at him that way, like the way that she like no, it's yeah,
Yeah,
Draco
I'm the same way.
Manacled for me.
I had to bring that up. I'm a Dramoni so bad.
Right? It's yeah, I honestly think at this point in my life, I love those fan fictions more because
Yeah.
it
Oh,
it
and that's when you
humanizes
know that
him.
you've written something amazing is when people do fan fictions of your book. Like, I don't take that as a slight. I don't take that as, oh, they think I should have written it differently. No, that is like, you've made it.
That is like yeah, I started out with fan fictions, Harry Potter, of course, because who didn't? But like that would be the moment that I've been like, yeah, okay, I made it. I've definitely made it. I've made it.
Yep.
It's so funny y'all bring up fan fiction because as somebody who wants to write, like the easiest thing to write would probably be fan fiction because I've read these books so many times. I've seen the movies or going back to books that I kind of loved but I hated the movies was Divergent. Hated the movies. Movies were absolutely horrible, but the books were actually pretty good. I got a little bit mad at the end, but
Who
that's
didn't?
not uncommon. Yeah. But like it would be so fun to write fan fiction based on the direction the movies should have went and didn't or something like that. And like that would be such an easy way for anybody to get into writing.
Well,
Uh
do you know how many people actually have written fan fiction and then they go through, they change, like, if it's too similar to the plot, they'll change it a little bit, they'll change the names, and then they publish it as its own book. Like, I think Fifty Shades of Grey is
Yep,
yeah,
a
Fifty
fan
Shades of Grey.
it's a
fiction
fan fiction.
from
So is
Twilight.
Yep,
City of
of Twilight.
Bones.
City of
City of
Bones.
Bones is a Harry Potter fan fiction, or was back in the
Yeah.
day.
I've heard about all of this stuff and
Yeah.
like that I don't really agree with and especially because like some of these books aren't even that well written like 50 Shades of Grey like there's so
See,
many better books out there but
I heard
people
that Manacled is going to be published.
yes. Yeah, she
And
pulled it. And she pulled it off so that people can't read it anymore. I think that that's what happened is because she's publishing it.
which I'm curious though to see how it go like because it made sense as a fan fiction, right? Like
Yep.
if Voldemort had won the war, yada yada yada, right?
Yeah.
I
right.
wonder what's going to happen to make it its own entity, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, see, this is why I'm
I'd
okay
be
with
curious
people.
about that.
Yeah, and that's why I'm okay with people doing the fan fiction. And even if it's not like okay, so I'm dyslexic. my ability to write words correctly and to, grammar and all that stuff correctly is atrocious. That's why I have editors. That's why like I comb through stuff probably way more than normal writers is because I'm dyslexic and I fuck shit up really good like that. But I think that, especially getting the courage to publish a book and to put it out there for the world is the most scary thing. And knowing that you're going to have people who don't like it, knowing that you're going to have people who hate it, who tear it down, it's very vulnerable because these are people that we have developed in our mind. It's a story that we have wanted to tell, and I don't think people realize how much of a shot to the heart some of that can be.
Yeah, for sure. You definitely have to have like a thicker skin for sure. And I don't have that. I'll tell you right now, I'm very, very sensitive. My feelings get hurt really easy, especially by myself. So I tend to avoid reader spaces if I can, just because it's for them, feel free to discuss and talk about and whatever. But I also know like we're supposed to pull quotes from reviews when we're marketing. So like sometimes I'll have to go and do that. And it's always so like, hey, blinders on, just look at the good ones because not that the bad ones don't have merit, but you don't want to get in that headspace where the imposter syndrome can like really kick on because that kicks on all the time no matter what.
Yeah.
You don't want to help it.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, like Bree, with you saying that that one was badly written, I think that that stuff, being able to get to where, readers can say that and you guys have the place to say that, like what you were saying, JC, but then authors can have to where they feel comfortable going back and reading it because she could rewrite another book and it would be amazing because she listened to the critics. But
Yes.
getting to the point to where you can listen to that and not take it personal, like I feel like there's a place for everyone. There's a place for the readers to be like, "Hey, I think this could have been done differently. I think this could have been," and then taking it and then putting it into your next book. But that's
Yeah.
a hard place to get.
I definitely have done that in the past, but I feel like I need to give myself time after each release, right? And then I can go back and then I can like look at it objectively and apply things. And I have gotten a lot of great advice from those kinds of reviews for sure. It's the ones that just like kind of are mean for no reason without
That's fair.
constructive criticism that you're like, oh, ouch.
Yeah, that's fair. So with this book that you often write people who have actual disabilities in the stories, right?
Well, I'm working towards it. Um, I've had a couple of friends who are disabled tell me like a lot of the times regular people won't want to pick up those characters unless they've already been introduced and they've already like read about them in a different way. So what I've been doing is introducing characters that have different abilities and they are getting their own books. So in my Rebel series, a character named Sam has my condition, multiple exostosis, and she's going to be getting her own book with Tommy called Rebel Bones. And
That's
then
cool.
yeah, and it ties into my Forgotten Flounder series because one of the little boys in that series also has my MHE. And I crafted his character off of my son's because I wanted to include all the things that they loved in this little boy. So they're connected because obviously his mom is eventually going to find other people with their condition via the internet because the internet is wonderful and lovely. And the Rebel series does have a country musician, and the Forgotten Flounder series is a rock star punk rock band from Nova Scotia. So there's going to be some kind of musical entities crossing over there in that regard. So the third book in the Forgotten Flounder series is going to be told from the little boy's mom's point of view. So it's
That's
off
pretty
balance.
cool.
And I'm so excited for it. I hate that it takes me forever to write though, guys. I'm not going to lie. But so like I've been building up to this for years, for years. And then with this book that I just wrote, Riverside Reverie, there's a couple of characters that have different conditions in it as well. And that's because in my friend group, like somebody's like, oh, this is so unrealistic. And I'm like, actually, they're really based off of my friend group. Like, I've got a bone disorder. We had a friend with epilepsy. And then my friend with, oh my God, I always say this condition wrong. And she always laughs at me. Oh my God, I'm just going to call it EDS. I will mispronounce it and she will like rake me over the coals for it.
Is it
But
the
anyway,
Ehlers-Danlos
yes, that I
syndrome?
always
Yeah.
mispronounce wrong.
Okay. Yeah. Just making sure that I knew what that was. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
EDS.
She's tried to train me, but it's like if she's not there melting it, then I won't be able to say it. It's hilarious. But yeah, so like in our friend group alone, we have a lot of different people who have different abilities. So like I just kind of included that in this camping story because it was inspired by a camping trip we all went on back in I think 2016. So yeah.
That's fun. So do you notice yourself like, and this is something I'm curious just because I'm an author and I do it and I want to know if other authors do it. Like, I will see things happen in real life or I'll see situations happen in real life and I'm like, oh, I need to write that down. That's a
Oh
good
my God, yes.
storyline.
I literally told my brother-in-law like 2 weekends ago when we were camping and he like the chair broke and he just like folded and he fell over. And he's like, holy shit, that dumped me like a prom date. I was like, I died laughing. I'm like, that's going in a book. I don't even care.
I have notes on my phone where I
Yeah.
like I will just so the name of my fantasy book, the name of the nation is called Cacawex. My son, when he was like 5 or 6, he didn't talk until he was almost 4. He was trying to say Pokemon names and he was not saying them correctly, but that was how he said one of the Pokemon names. And I was like, "Oh, I love the way that sounds, Cacawex. Okay, that's going written down." So my son named my world.
That's awesome. I love that. I love like just everything can be inspiration to me.
Yeah.
Like just experiencing it, feeling it, seeing it, hearing about it. It's all inspiration to me. It doesn't necessarily come out the same, but like it definitely influences.
Yeah, on that, going back to D&D characters, I actually have a note in my phone going of like anything that I come across, like any ideas, like for characters, I just throw it in there because
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm gonna forget this.
Yeah. You are actually already writing stories, Bree. You just don't know it.
This is the beginning, Bree. This is called the plotting that you're doing, and it takes forever. Yes, I literally started writing Riverside Reverie in 2017. Yeah, I like because other stories would come to me, so like I would put it aside and then go back to it, and then like, but I knew the characters, and just other things had to happen in order to keep going. It's yeah, that's it. Sometimes it's a long haul, and then other times I can write a book in a month. I could get a concept, and then the whole thing could be done within a month. It depends.
You
Yeah,
know,
I'm
it's so
nervous.
interesting. Oh, go
Go
ahead,
ahead.
Randy.
I was gonna say I'm nervous about jumping around from story to story because like I have a hard time of like the small things that you think are really important in books. Like if I jump to another story, I'm always afraid I'm gonna lose like what was the meaning of that character that said that one thing, and then I have to like go back and reread my whole story, and then oh, that makes me nervous. But I honestly think that might help with some of my like writer's block too, because right now I'm like I can't get anything to come to my brain.
I do find it can be difficult, but like either way I look at it, I always have to keep going back and rereading things to like keep the flow steady, right? Like so for me, and it doesn't happen all the time, just some of the time. It's like you're reading a book, but then a book that you've been waiting on comes out and you set it aside to read the book you've been waiting on, right? Like or you watching a TV series, but another thing comes out that you really want to watch. You just kind of like I don't know.
That's
That's how
fair.
I view it.
You know, as a somebody who wants to write, one of the biggest things, like one of the biggest things that scares me is like, oh, like I have everybody has like reading pet peeves. And one of mine is whenever an author like touches on something and then just leaves it, just absolutely leaves it. And it could be the first book and like does not pick it back up ever. And so I know that Randy has a notes app that she was telling me about that she uses to help keep her stories straight.
Yeah, Obsidian, it is like this web. So like I will when I have plot points or I have things that I'm like, okay, so I had a fortune teller say something to my character and like I want to make sure that I incorporate that somehow in the end. So I have plot or I have tagged it in the web so it connects in the web. And it is beautiful. It is amazing. I was a pantser before, and now I'm actually feeling like I'm starting to turn into a plotter a little bit because I have this structure, and my ADHD brain is like, this is so wonderful. I don't have to do all the thinking and remembering.
I'm gonna have to look into that because yeah, like I was saying to my editor, she's like, I need off balance. I need it. And I'm like, okay, but it's gonna take a while because I forget. Like I forget what I was doing, you know?
Yeah.
Like I forgot. I
Yeah.
know what I was doing in the grander scheme, but there, like you said, there's little threads that I need to pick up and I need to
Hmm.
connect them and I need to finish them. And that means that I'm going to have to go through all of my books and like make extensive notes
Right.
on things that I need to include in this book to tie everything in neatly because it's the last
Yeah.
book of the series.
Her note app. I know it's on
As
iPhone.
Obsidian?
Hmm.
Obsidian. Yeah, it's
Obsidian.
even
I
on computer as well because I put it
yeah,
on my PC.
yeah,
I'm gonna have to look at it.
that's what I mainly use it on is the computer. There's an app too, but you have to pay for a membership to sync it
Oh,
through different places. But I'm willing to do that because sometimes I'll be writing, or taking notes on my
yeah.
phone. But it's so worth it. I found it through D&D actually because I saw a campaign guy who's like, this is what the characters are going through, and then he like zooms out on his web, and it's like, this is what I've got planned, and it's like all these connecting dots, and like the characters only see this much, but it's connected everywhere, and I was like,
I need that because that's how my brain works. But trying to like
Mhm.
get that out, like it's just, oh my God, I need
yeah,
that. I feel like I'd be able to jump back into off balance real quick if I had that.
yeah,
Yeah, and I
it
feel
takes a
like there's
little while. Go ahead,
go
go.
ahead. I just feel like there's so many tools for writing these days that didn't used to exist. Like whenever I used to write before when I was in high school, like I didn't even have a computer. I wrote in a spiral.
Pen to paper.
Yeah. And like
Yep.
I don't even like writing that much. My handwriting is atrocious. My hand starts to
Oh,
hurt. And so
yeah.
I'm like, but now I have a PC. I can just type. And I know that I had a friend that was an author and she used to have like this little like it looked like a little calculator, but it was for
Was
words.
it an Alpha Smart? Oh my God, I
Yes.
used to have an Alpha Smart when
And
I was in high
she just
school and I want
she will
one.
just write in
Yeah,
it. And so like all day long she just writes and then she's like, "Yeah, I'll just sync it to my computer." And I'm
yeah.
like, "What?"
You don't
Like
get
that's
distracted because there's
amazing.
no app.
There's
You
no
you
screen,
can't
you
go
just type.
back. Yeah, you just get the one little line so you can see the one
Yep.
little sentence. I've been looking for one because I thought like that'll really help with I get distracted so easily.
Yeah.
So yeah, I used to have
I
one in
want to
high school
say
and I
she
remember.
found it at a thrift store.
Yeah, that's what people are saying, but like online they're so expensive now because like
Right.
people are like it's a relic.
Oh, that hurts a little.
Doesn't it?
I have VHSs down here, and one of my TikTok videos that went viral was my son getting one of the VHSs, and he goes, "Is this a book?" And I'm like, "Oh, no, ouch! You're not allowed to talk to me anymore. I'm not that
Yeah.
old yet."
Sometimes I think about the fact that I was born in the 1900s.
Oh, ow, that hurt
Ouch.
too. Shit.
Yeah. I was in 1989, mind you, but still, like,
Oh, my son reminds me. He's a teenager and he likes to remind me that I was born in the 1900s. And I'm like, please don't ever say that again.
yep. Yep.
Oh, that's so true.
I
Ouch.
feel,
Shit.
I feel like yesterday I was so young. I was so young. And now I'm like, what happened?
No, like mentally, it's crazy because mentally, I'm still 25. Like,
Exactly.
I
Same.
don't know how long I'm going to be 25, but mentally, I am 25. And
Brielle's
it's
like,
like,
wait a
but my
second.
body is not.
I was like, shit, you're 25?
I wish.
Talking to
I
babies.
get you. It took me a
I
minute.
wish.
My old brain was a little slow processing that.
My brain is 25. My body feels like it's 45. I'm
Yep.
actually in the middle.
That's hilarious. So with your latest book, Riverside Riviera, right? Is that how you say that?
I don't know. Now I'm second guessing. I
Riverside
told myself too,
Reverie?
I'm like, you know what? Next time I write a
Reverie?
book, I need to pick a title I can pronounce. Reverie,
Reverie.
reverie,
See,
Reverie?
it,
reverie.
it's all good. Listen, the way that you say it is the correct way. Everyone else is wrong.
Exactly. Read the book. It's better than the speak, okay?
So that's coming out this August, right?
Yep, August 7th it's releasing. It's available for pre-order now. So that's exciting. I already got my physical copies for the book signing event I'm doing in August, and they are
Ooh,
gorgeous. Like
so
Nice.
gorgeous.
pretty.
So pretty.
Oh, I love that.
I love it. I'm in love with it.
So when you do chapters, do you name the chapter or do you like just put the character's point of view?
I do both. I've done both. This one, the chapters are named, but
Okay, read us what is the first chapter's name?
you want to know the first chapter's name?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
The Snap.
The Snap.
A
Ooh.
snap.
Yep.
Oh,
Ooh.
And then Road Trip.
Road trip.
ew.
We go right into it. The pretense of this one is that After she graduates college, her younger sister sends her a snap of herself in bed with her boyfriend.
With
Welcome home,
with the
sissy.
sister's boyfriend?
Yes.
Oh
Oh,
shit.
Yep. So,
That's like
spicy.
chapter one.
well, like at this point, she's already received the snap and she's back at home and like just needing to get away because her sister is just rubbing it in every chance she gets that she's with now her ex-boyfriend kind of thing.
Damn.
So she decides to join her best friend on a camping trip, even though she's very much not the outdoorsy type. She's, never really camped in her life. Cottaged, sure, but like camped, no. So yeah, she decides peeing in the woods is preferable to dealing with her sister.
Jumping right into the drama. I love it.
Right off
I,
the hop.
I feel like that's another shirt right there. I prefer to pee in the woods than deal with my toxic family.
That's a good one. Or sticker with a roll of toilet paper beside trees.
I'm actually writing it down because that's good.
JC's got all the good ideas.
Feel free to, yeah, I don't care. I'm not very creative when it comes to stuff like that, like making my own design. Like, nah, I'm not creative. I'd have to pay someone else to do it anyway.
I'm
Well,
not
that's
either.
That's
My
what I think is
husband
going to
is,
be
but
really fun about this is like if I design this stuff and like I'll put some up on our shop, but I'll just give you the designs like because that is what I enjoy doing. I love creating stuff. I love doing art. I love all that kind of
gosh.
stuff. And this is where I can do these kind of things that I love for the book community, the people who don't have graphic designers or all this other stuff. And it's just going to help make people want to be on my podcast. So it's fine.
Exactly. It's like a win-win-win-win for everybody.
Exactly. So I want to point out how like in your application that you put that your extra bones are not like Wolverine's. Like I thought that was the cutest, funniest thing ever.
I always giggle about that because one of my husband's friends said to me, "You can grow bones like Wolverine?" And I was like, "Well, no, like I can't do it on demand." And they don't get really sharp and pointy and, you know, it would probably hurt if I mean it does hurt if I try to punch people with it. I know this because I one time slapped my sister in the face with an exostosis and I had to go for surgery to get it removed because we don't hurt people with our bones. But
Yeah, there's
yeah,
a shirt.
We
we
don't
don't
hurt
hurt
people
people.
with their bones. That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, she never smarted me again about my condition because she knew it would hurt if I hit her with it.
Sometimes we need those hard, painful lessons.
Yep, yep. Yeah, so yeah, not they I can't do it on demand, but some like you're told, like we were told that this condition would stop growing when you were an adult. But I've proven that wrong because I've had some of them come up in my adulthood. And my doctor's like, what? Okay. Like one of them. So, I think I mentioned in the application that not only do I have this bone condition, but I have a platelet secretion deficiency, which essentially means my blood does not clot properly. So the very first surgery I ever had was chaos because I started bleeding from the bones and the doctors did not know what the hell was going on or what to do. So since then, I was treated as a bleeder and given medicine before every procedure, yada, yada, yada. Well, in 2019, I'd had enough of the rib pain. I was having a lot of rib pain from my camping trip on the French River, which inspired the Riverside Reverie book. And it's because I bent over and my exostosis on my rib got caught. And I guess when I tried to like straighten it up, I broke my rib. And I just kept re-breaking that rib over and over again. Every time I bent down to put on socks or moved a certain way, it would break the rib, break the rib, break the rib. So I finally decided I was going to go in when I started having weird toe pain. Like my toe would fall asleep when I would try to sit at the desk and write. And then he found out that I grew more, one on my pelvic bone, which some of these exostoses can be very sharp and pointy, and they're called rosebuds because they kind of look like the rosebud, right? So the sharpest part of that exostosis was over my femoral artery. And every time it would compress that artery, my toe would go numb, right? So because I'm a bleeder and that's over a major artery, he's like, yeah, you got to go in now, like right now. Like
That's
this is kind of deadly. But the funny thing is that I couldn't go in right then and there because we were still waiting on surgery dates for my two kids who also have this condition. So he's like, who's their doctor? And I told him, and he's like, oh, I went to med school with him. I'll give him a call. So within 2 days, I had the appointment for the kids, and they went in at the end of October 2019, and I went in at the end of November 2019. So it was like triple surgeries in 1 year kind of thing, utter chaos. And when he went in there, the whole femoral artery thing, he's like, we got that in time. And he's like, and as for your rib, you just kept breaking it and re-breaking it. So like, this is this is how did you live with that? And I'm like, I don't know. I just kind of get to a place where I mentally just disassociate from my body.
That is insane. Like you were literally breaking bones, but because your toe was falling asleep, that's what made you go to the doctor. Like
Yeah.
I know pain. Pain is nothing, but why is that thing? I can't feel that. That's not okay.
Well, it was so distracting when you're trying to sit at your computer and write, and all of a sudden your whole toe is numb. It was like really affecting my ability to write. And I think that was the key, right? When something starts affecting your coping ability, which in my case is writing, then it gets harder to cope. And then you actually have to face your problems. And I figured, oh, well, I'll get that checked out and then I'll deal with the rest of it too while I'm there. And he also removed one from the back of my arm that like I couldn't lift my arm up and wash my hair properly. And I
Yeah.
was like, we'll just get all three at once. So he went in there, he had to detach the muscle and like get two exostoses out from underneath it kind of thing. So it was like a brutal post-op surgery. Like your
Couple
femoral
different
artery, like your
incision
pelvis.
spots.
Yeah, pelvis, not exactly the funnest place to have operated, I will tell you that.
That
And
sucks.
then, yeah, he's like, your ribs are really gonna hurt because you keep breaking it. And now I've like taken off the bone. So like
See,
fun.
that pain, that just lets you know like your pain tolerance is so insane. I popped a rib out of place one time and I could barely breathe. Like that is a very sensitive area.
It really is. I definitely start like deep breaths were not a thing that I could do. I I had like modified how I put on socks for a while, and then I even like trained my kids to put on my socks at one point because I was like, yeah, no, we'll just do it this way instead of going to the doctor. But you reach a
Coming.
point, it's bad. I know it's bad, but I reached a point where I was just like, I don't want to do it anymore. I'm tired. So yeah,
And from
fun
another
times.
perspective, everybody's like, "Oh, you're in so much pain. Why don't you just go to the doctor?" Well, the doctors down like here, they'll just dismiss you a
Yeah.
lot of the times. Like I had went to the emergency room with issues with my heart rate, and I had a pulmonary embolism a few years ago, so that's always a bigger like trigger for me. I have a lot of PTSD around that.
Yeah.
And so I went to make sure that I wasn't having another pulmonary embolism because once you have one, it increases your risks and all that. And like they did everything, and I went in and my heart rate was like 140 resting. And they gave me fluids and I sat there and I was sick as well. And they had gave me some steroids. And then by the end of it, it went down. And the doctor came in and goes, "Were you just maybe a little bit anxious?" And I just kind of went stone faced and I was like, yeah, I was anxious.
Yeah, that's crazy. Like for the MHE thing, it's kind of like, it's pretty easy to
Right.
treat in the sense of you can get that removed. But I did go through a spell basically from like I want to say 2018 onward, where I was just getting sick all the time. Like I was
Hmm.
vomiting 7 days a week for a month, like 7 days of a month, right? Like so a week a month. Yeah.
Hmm.
And they couldn't figure out why. And I'd go to the hospital after having like these cyclic vomiting episodes, and they'd be like, "Oh, well, you're just dehydrated. We'll give you anti-nausea meds, and
Right.
you're fine. You're fine." It turns out the whole time that I was allergic to cannabinoids. So I was treating my pain, my chronic pain with medical marijuana, but I was like intolerant towards cannabinoids. So I have something called cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome or something like that. So it took like my brother-in-law, who's a paramedic, kind of being like,
Mm.
I was watching you this weekend and I noticed that you got sick after you had,
Right.
and I think it might be this. So I quit cold turkey and it took a month to clear up, but I
Right.
hadn't had an
And see,
episode
that's
since.
something that specifically is actually something that's running through the medical community as medical marijuana is becoming more prevalent. And they are dismissing a lot of people's symptoms as that. But what you have is actually pretty rare. Most people are not going to be that sensitive to it. And they're like, oh, well, it's because the amounts that you're getting are not what you used to get and all that. And I understand all that. But they're just dismissing a lot of people's symptoms as that, as
See, for
the
me, it was the
that,
opposite, right? Like they never even drew a
right?
parallel to it.
Yeah, and
Not
it's
even,
so crazy to see two different sides of that.
yeah, it's wild.
Because I had a friend who was going through that, and she actually has like cyclic vomiting,
Oh, yeah, that's what they told me I had, cyclic
so
vomiting
that's
syndrome.
what she actually has. But they had told her that it was what you have, and
Opposite for me.
it was opposite, and so she had quit, and it did not help her. In fact, it made everything worse for her
Yeah,
because for her, the medical marijuana was helping her not vomit, but they saw it as, oh, it's making you vomit. And
that's
so
so
it's so
crazy.
crazy. Yeah.
I wonder if they just like roll the dice and stick to what they, like, well,
Nat
this dice says
one.
that you got this one.
Well, it's like I was
Yeah,
talking to my husband about it, and medical is one of those things you cannot possibly be taught everything. There's just no possible way. And that's why specialties exist. But it's still so crazy that there's so many people like us in the world that struggle to get diagnoses, even with specialists.
yeah,
And they're just so fast to just dismiss it as something that it's not.
of course. And as soon as they get it in their head that it's something, you
No.
cannot convince them otherwise.
Nope.
Like, and another like whatever point in this, I mentioned that mental health is very important in my work, and it is. But during COVID, I had a bit of a mental breakdown, and I went to the hospital, and I remember the guy telling me that I'm bipolar, and I was able to not have symptoms because I
Yeah.
write. And I was like, that doesn't make sense though, because
Yeah.
I've never had a manic episode ever, like
Hang
ever,
on,
ever,
hang
ever,
on. Did you say I just want to clarify really quick. He said that you weren't having symptoms because of what?
because I'm a writer. And I was like, that's not right because
Yeah.
I know many writers who have bipolar disorder and
Yeah.
writing does not cure them of their manic episodes. But he literally wouldn't let me leave the hospital until I said that I had bipolar and would take
Yeah.
medication. Like
Yeah.
I was
I
not
was
allowed to leave.
I was misdiagnosed as bipolar because
Yeah.
they told me I was having manic episodes. I actually have severe depression, severe anxiety, and PTSD, which can all have symptoms of bipolar, but I am not bipolar. And the
Yep.
fact that I have that on my medical record now is ridiculous.
Yep. I spent a year after that diagnosis fighting with my doctor because the meds were making me worse. Like I was
Yeah.
sleeping all the time. I wasn't writing. I wasn't myself. My husband and my kids were like, what the hell is going on? All of
Hmm.
my family was like, what is going on? And I'd sit there and I'd say to my family doctor, I don't think I'm bipolar. I think this is wrong. And she'd say, that's exactly what somebody with bipolar would say. So during one of my cyclic vomiting episodes, right, like the when I was very, very sick, I obviously couldn't keep anything down. So I had to quit taking the medication they wanted me to take.
Hmm.
And I didn't tell her for 2 months. I was off it for 2 months. And I was like watching myself, and my husband was watching me. My whole family was watching me. No symptoms of anything, like nothing. So I went back to her and I said, yeah, I haven't taken any of the meds for 2 months. I haven't had any manic episodes whatsoever. And I feel a lot better than I have in like 2 years. She's like, oh, yeah, a lot of people were misdiagnosed during COVID.
See, my all of see this all I was misdiagnosed like when I was younger, but during COVID too, I had a lot of depression, and I was on a depression medication because after I had my daughter, I had really bad postpartum anxiety. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it just got to the point that I would check to make sure she was breathing 5 times out of the night because I knew she was gonna die. Like that's what my brain was telling me. And so they had put me on Zoloft, and it worked okay until COVID. And then during COVID, of course, I stopped being able to see my doctor. They were only doing like phone visits and stuff like that. And they ended up changing my medication to something completely and just not even weaning me off Zoloft, just making me stop cold turkey and starting a new medication. And I immediately like switched and went suicidal. And I've never felt like that in my life, ever. And I stopped taking that medication so fast, and I told that doctor no, because it's at some point you have to trust your own body.
Yes, for sure.
I think
And
that that's a lot of it is like you have to trust yourself because so many people put things on you that they think you are. And, our parents do it, with most of the time the best of intentions. Our peers do it. They put stuff on you and you like, do I keep this identity or do I let this go? Is this really me or am I different? And then you have to decide what identity you want to hold on to. And that's a whole other fucking spiderweb ball game.
Yep, for sure. And medicine is good when it's right for you. But if
Right.
something's not feeling right, then it can be dangerous, for sure. Even weed for
Yeah.
me.
Right, exactly. Something that helps so many people can also be dangerous. And you just have to listen to your body. And that's a lot of things with chronic pain and chronic illness. It is listening to your body. And you chose not to listen to yours and ended up in a dangerous situation. And I mean, that's what happens to a lot of people with chronic illnesses. And it's looked like people just don't see that. That's the invisible side of chronic illnesses, is the things that we put ourselves through to not deal with to not deal with hospitals, to not deal with doctors, to not deal with the judgments.
Yep.
That's
Nail on
that's
the
got to
head
be
there.
so hard on your mental health too, is like when the professionals are questioning whether or not you know your own body. How do you actually listen to your body whenever these professionals are telling you that you're wrong? That's hard.
Yeah,
Yep.
definitely.
Totally are. Yeah, it's wild.
Well, JC, I love this conversation. I love that this was the first episode, and I am actually really freaking excited that this is going to be out there for everyone to listen to as our first episode because this was great. This is exactly what I wanted. Very laid back conversations, us laughing, us talking about some deep stuff, but it's also very positive. Like you have this serious shit going on and you're like, "Nope, I'm still gonna do my thing and I'm gonna follow my dream and nothing's gonna stop me." That is badass.
That's the way you got to do. Like you're dealt the cards that you have, and you got to play them.
So if people want to find your book or follow you on social media or anything like that, how do people connect with you?
They can. I'm everywhere. I'm on like X, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Threads.
Threads. I love threads.
My books are available on Amazon, Kobo, Barnes and Noble, Apple Books, everywhere. So they're also in Kobo Plus, which is like a new subscription-based thing, which I love because they don't make you just be with them like another.
The one people we're not going to mention, but those other people who.
The money grubblers.
But
So
yeah, that's a new alternative that I'm loving is that you can get a subscription. And it's like if you wanted to do the read and listen, it's cheaper than to do other. So I like that. And yeah, that's you can find me everywhere. I think I'm author JC Hannigan across everything except for X Twitter. It's JC Hannigan Books because apparently author JC Hannigan was way too long for X to handle.
that's funny. Yeah, I guess the tweets only let you do so much, so everything else is going to be limited too, huh?
Your username is too long.
All right. So if you guys like this episode, I encourage you to join our Discord community. It's a place where we will talk about, the episodes as they come out, have conversations that go a little bit deeper. And it's also a place where if you, as authors or writer, or not writers, let me say things twice. As authors or publishers or editors or narrators, we are letting you guys connect with each other there. So it's going to be a place that building up community, not just for authors, but everyone in the book world. So if you're looking for something, join it. We will help find that connection for you. JC, thank you so, so, so much for sharing your story. That was great. Bree, you too. Like you guys have both gone through so much and the chronic illness, that is no joke. And that is something that I think, people just need to, like you guys said, listen to their own bodies. You guys are very important people, and being in pain is not something that you guys should have to do any more than what you already have to do.
Well, thank you for having me.
Of course. Do you guys have anything else you want to touch on before we end the episode?
I'm good.
Just maybe pre-order my book that's releasing in August.
Yes, yes. Please go and pre-order the book. Let's hype up JC as much as possible with her
And
amazing
for those
book
of
that's
you
coming
who
out.
can't see the book cover, it's really pretty. So
Oh yes,
just
yes.
take our word for it.
Yeah, Yeah. The ones who are listening on Spotify, it is beautiful and it makes me want to go read it.
Maybe if you follow JC, she'll have a picture.
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
actually, yeah.
lots of pictures.
The listeners, yeah, you guys are missing out. You guys need to go follow, like, and share her stuff because that's going to be really where you get the good content.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Hey guys, thanks for joining us on this episode of Lemon's Listening Library. Remember, every story has a journey, and every journey deserves to be heard. Keep reading, keep writing, and keep listening. Join us next time where we talk to reader Jessica Hicks, a survivor of abuse and Pentecostal. She's embraced her true self despite becoming disabled. Her story is one of resilience and self-acceptance.